What's up, guys? My name is Isaac Poti, and I'm the host of Tales from the Tailboard Podcast. This podcast is built for all first responders, from the ones taking the call to the ones clearing the scene to the ones we transfer care to, and everyone in between. Today's episode is one of those conversations that reminds you why experience matters, why service evolves, and why responsibility doesn't stop at the edge of your job description. My guest today has nearly 3 decades of EMS, starting his career in New York City before continuing on to North Carolina and now serving as an assistant training coordinator for Lancaster County EMS. He's a paramedic, an instructor at every level, a tactic medic involved in search and rescue, bike teams, executive protection, and community trainings. But more importantly, he's someone who has stepped into uncomfortable spaces to protect people who often don't have a voice. We're going to talk about EMS training, leadership, human trafficking awareness, and what it looks like to serve your community beyond the ambulance. I'm honored to have him here, but I'll let him tell his own story. Brian, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Warning. The opinions expressed in this content are those of the host and its guests.
Services allow that.
Doing paramedic AF.
Every car with a ballistic shield.
Things the fire service can't stand.
Here, same day, created a new account. Got
fast here. Like they're amazing.
Isaac, thank you so much for having me, man. It's a real pleasure to be here. You hit all the high points, but I'm starting coming up on my 29th or 30th year in EMS. Started in New York City. Spent 18 long years there and moved down here. I am the assistant training coordinator for Lancaster County EMS. It's a fairly decent sized service. We have over 120 employees, full and part-time. We just hit 20,000 calls this year for a service in South Carolina. That's not too bad. Our people, they hump, they move and they work, and
it seems like it.
Yeah, and it's been an interesting thing for me. One of the great lies that you're told is that if you work in New York City, you can work anywhere. And I think that it's there was a learning curve when I first got there, but I love this service. I love being where I'm at right now. I'm surrounded by amazing people that give me enough rope to work out these other endeavors and the stuff that we work in. And I love the idea of what you were talking about, like outside the normal part of what EMS is, and the amount of community training that we do, the amount of outreach and everything that we're involved in. I never actually thought that was going to be part of my career, but I love the daily part of that, the interaction with the community and actually educating them on what we are and what we do. And it takes some of the restraints off of what we can be. I think that, everybody looks at EMS as something that, okay, you show up in the ambulance, pick up the patient, you treat them really well, and you take them to the hospital, and that's it. And it's self-limiting. And I think that a lot of times we limit ourselves by the lack of our imagination about what we can do. And the trafficking part of it especially is something that, along with the executive protection stuff, were two avenues that I had never considered, but were given the opportunity to explore, and I've really loved every minute of it. And when I say I love the human trafficking work, it's a hard thing to explain in the sense that it's such a horrible topic, but to connect with the people that I have and to help educate, I guess, for lack of a better word, but to bring information to other first responders and actually other, community organizations has been a real great experience, and hopefully we've caused some positive change.
Oh, yeah. It's being more and more prevalent because of social media, because of online activity and everything else. And the fact that we have as much of it growing as we do counteracting it makes a big difference. And first off, thank you for being part of that, because I'm not part of it currently. I mean, I do my job, but I'm not doing these outreach programs and human trafficking and stuff. We have people like you that do that. Not to say that I wouldn't, but I'm not. And that's not getting anything done. You're actively doing it, so that's getting it done.
Well, I think the idea is that when we talk about like the awareness for first responders, a lot of people find out that they're actually doing it without actually knowing it. If we're not reinventing the wheel on how to look at our patients or how to do our assessments and that stuff, and it's simply, maybe for lack of a better word, taking blinders off and actually seeing things that are right in front of us and looking at it not as a medical thing, but is this a red flag in maybe a sociological setting? Is this person at risk for something other than a medical thing? What are we looking at here? And is there a way that we can create change without doing this direct intervention? Because, one of the things that we talk a lot about is that if you have a person in front of you that you believe is being trafficked, there's an inherent danger in there, because the trafficker or the traffickers that are involved in this are not going to care about a medic or an EMT getting in the middle of this. This is something that, we talk about a lot. When I talk to them, or I talk to anybody, it's like, you are not going to put your body in the middle of all this. You are a information gatherer. You are a help provider. You are doing what you do every day with your patients, but you're retaining a little bit more information off this call, and that hopefully will make that difference. Because we talk about the idea that these patients, and if you've ever had a patient who has been a domestic violence patient, they are not necessarily very forthcoming about information. You may not get someone telling you, oh, I'm being trafficked or I'm being abused or, like this. You may have to really dig into what's going on and use your best intuition and sort of just report it up the chain and do what you can. And hopefully the reporting that you're doing is going to be well received. And that's one of the bigger things that we're dealing with.
Yeah. So we'll more than likely get in that when we start going forward with the questions here. Our first question I have for you is, you started EMS career in New York City. How did that environment shape you early on, and what lessons from that still guide how you train and lead today?
I think that, working in a major city is always an interesting jump in EMS. And I started paramedic school September 10th, 2001. So the next day I got up and the attack on the World Trade Center happened. And so I spent some time there. I was involved in it in a small way. And I had been an EMT for 3 years, and I had done the work that everybody does the day in and day out and all that other stuff. And I think that, with this job, the more you do, the more skills that you develop, the better repetition that you get, your abilities will always improve. And we certainly did not suffer for slowness. We were busy all the time. I think last year they did somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 4 million calls in New York City. So there's always, yeah. So, and hearing them doing 2,000-3,000 calls a day is not uncommon. So, really? Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you take into
how many ambulances are there in New York?
So that's a great question, because you have the 5 boroughs, you have the fire department, and you have all of the hospital-based systems, and even some private services that are involved in there. And there are hundreds out. So, saying that like Staten Island or where I worked a lot, or in Brooklyn where I worked a lot, we didn't necessarily do 3,000 calls a day, but for all over New York City with the millions and millions of people in there, the 3,000 calls a day were not uncommon. Working an 8 or a 12-hour shift, getting 10, 11 calls in that was not an uncommon day. Mm-hmm. And then, it's the variety, in the sense that TV doesn't really have the ability to make up some of the calls that we actually receive, because they tend to go down this like, oh my God, this is very gory and very weird and very like that. but the human aspect of it, they just don't make up well, and you come into contact with so many different cultures and personalities and belief systems, and to navigate all that makes you a better provider, I think, if you embrace it. Because when I moved down here, and one of the first calls, I was working with my partner and my supervisor. We had a couple gentlemen who didn't speak any English, and they were day laborers, and we were talking a little bit, trying to get some information, and I started speaking in Spanish to them. And I looked up, and my partner's looking at me like I had like 3 heads, and I'm like, what? And he's like, well, how do you know this? And I said, well, you can't work the amount of time that I did in New York and not pick up some Spanish, because it's part and parcel of everything. And I think that, it's not out of line saying that EMS has enriched my life, because it's forced me to realize that there's a huge world out there. Sticking that in the sand is just failing not only myself but my patients. So,
absolutely. I feel like I've got some of the same areas you've got as far as like branching out and seeing the world. That didn't start until after I started fire and EMS. Once I started that, I was like, wow, this world is huge. Yeah.
And you were just a minimal part of it. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So you've worked across multiple states and systems. What differences stand out the most between New York, North Carolina, and your current role in South Carolina?
So like, that old joke about being able to work anywhere after you work in New York, the crutch, or maybe the safety blanket with New York, is that whenever something went really bad, you knew that there was a hospital 10 or 15 minutes away. There was as many hospitals as we have churches down here. Every time you turn around, there's another church and everything like that. Just the numbers that are there. Here, you don't have that. There's a lot of long transports. And when I worked in New York, it was a double medic truck. We had 2 medics on every truck. And we had ALS and BLS trucks. Here, I don't have that. We have medic and EMT, or medic and advanced, and now advanced and EMT and everything like that. So your skills have to be there. You need to be a clinician in the truest sense of it. You can't just sort of like, okay, well, we're going to drive really fast because I really don't know what's going on. You may not know what's going on, but you've got to perform. And the other thing that has come very apparent is the quality of BLS here. They are amazing. I mean, not that the ones in New York were not. I mean, quality EMTs, it's most of them. But we have so many here that not only skill-wise, but their breadth of knowledge is fantastic. And it's because they sort of have to be, because the medic really needs to lean on them for a lot of stuff. Plus, the other first responders, the interactions that I have with fire and law enforcement here are so much vastly improved from what I had in New York. Because in New York, it was very tribal and very territorial. Yes, they needed us, we needed them, we worked together and everything was fine. It was not like anybody had a lot of animosity. There's stories. But here, we really depend on each other. We train with each other. Like fire and law enforcement come to us for their training, their medical training. And we do so much work with them and the SWAT team and all this other stuff, that there is a cohesive environment that was such a shock to me, but a welcome shock. And so that and the need to make my skills to be as good as possible are probably the 2 biggest things that I've noticed.
Okay. So just to go straight into this, because you left off on a really good point there. As an assistant training coordinator and paramedic instructor, what do you think the current EMS education model does well, and where do you think it falls short?
Okay.
So I got you on this one, didn't I?
Yeah. Because it was funny. I was really thinking about this one when I was warming up to this. I think that what they do is they they try to adapt to the environment. Because for a very long time, since even before COVID, the numbers have just not been there. And we're bleeding medics, and like when I first started at the service that I'm at, the idea, excuse me, was that
You're good.
there was an insistence there be a paramedic on every truck. Sometimes two. We don't have that now. And so the way that training and education has changed is that there's been a theory of getting the most out of what you can do. So we have, we do all of our, not all, but most of our training in-house, all of our in-service training. I am currently running a hybrid EMT class.
How do you like training?
So with the EMT class or
Yeah, just in general. Like,
yeah.
How do you
I
like
love
teaching?
I love it. I'm not going to lie to you. I think that I'm a better instructor than I was a medic or am a medic.
Do you think? Did you think that 30 years ago you'd be teaching people?
Absolutely not. No. No, I never thought it for a minute. I wasn't sure what life was going to be in this by any stretch of the imagination. When I came down here, I was on the tail end of some incredible burnout, and I had sort of made peace with the idea that I was going to come in here and work for a while until I figured out what I really wanted to do. And I got into this position with Lancaster, and the people have literally saved me in this career, and sort of saw something in me and sort of encouraged it, and it has just sort of exploded. And so I love training. I love the idea of challenging myself to create an environment where everybody can come in and feel that they get something out of it. And it's not easy, because every February and March, we have our ACLS and BLS refreshers. And when you have a provider who's been doing this for 15, 20 years comes in and they're expecting the same old stuff, to be able to put them on their heels a little bit and make them think about what they're doing, rather than just like, okay, we're going to watch this video, we're going to take this test, I'm going to do this skill sort of half-assed, and they're going to pass me. When they find out that they actually have to be engaged and there's more of a hands-on scenario rather than sitting and watching PowerPoint, I love watching that, because at first there might be this sort of like unease, but then they really, watching them sort of say, hey, yes, this is good, we're doing this. And the other part of it is creating this cadre of instructors that we have, because my boss, the training coordinator, has sort of brought in all these others, and watching their passion and their desire to create a better training environment and do this, it's inspiring. And I tell them each time we get together, what's up, brother? Hey, Dan. I tell them that I want to be the worst instructor here, and that I am trying every day to get better. So I throw down the gauntlet to them to be that person. But just to talk about that hybrid EMT class, it is one that I think they viewed as a necessity. And it was, we meet once a week and we go over some topics, and then we do a lot of skills, but the majority of stuff is up to them to do. And I was very unsure of it, and I'm not 1,000% sold. I think that what is the best part about it is my students, because they have carried this class. I have come in and I've tried to be as ready as I can for them, and the instructors that I brought in, and really, but if they don't do the work, then this is all nothing.
Yeah.
Sarah.
Looks like you got some fans.
I do. I was surprised that they're all coming in, and I really appreciate that. That is that's awesome. So I mean, and I'm a firm believer that the instructor is merely a conduit for the students. I mean, I got to come in and be prepared and bring it, and I can't rely on PowerPoints, and I have to be each and every time I have to be there to create an environment for them to get the most out of it.
Oh yeah.
And so far, it seems to be going well. Oh, stop it! Jesus Christ. We okay. I'll smack him later. I promise you. So, this class has been going really well. I see some people who are a fire has been lit in them, and they want to do this. And that to me is a sign of success. My only job from here on in for the rest of my career is to create providers that are better than me.
Mm-hmm.
That can have a really, really long career and make a difference in this.
Are you done practicing?
Well, not yet. So I'm coming up on a year post quadruple bypass.
Oh.
And yeah, it was a bit of a shocker. There's a whole big deal with that. But I am slowly getting myself back to the idea of getting back on the truck. Before the procedure, I was doing at least one overnight shift a week to keep my hand in it. And I think that when you're out there doing it, there is a understanding that you're doing it. You know, it's not just sitting there and talking about it. And I miss it. I do. I miss being out there and working, and it's coming back. I've given myself a year to try and get myself back physically to what I think I was. Actually, I think I'm a little bit better. So I'm definitely going to get back on. And there's been a couple things where when the county's been a little short-staffed, I have run out and run a couple calls with one of my coworkers, and that's been a nice little jolt and everything. So, but thank you, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dan.
We are in danger of simplifying our training too much, I think. And what I mean by that is that we are looking at this as a need to get as many people as we can certified and become providers to work. And there's no doubt that we need the numbers. But sooner or later, if the quality of the education is not there, the juice is not going to be worth the squeeze.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I don't see, and I've talked to a couple people in other countries like England and Australia and these Commonwealth nations whose paramedic training is vastly different, who they add a lot of training and schooling and stuff that a lot of people in the United States would reject outright. And that is a whole nother conversation, which I'm always willing to have. But, I think we are allowing ourselves to be caught in a loop of education for the sake of getting people out there. And sooner or later, we're going to have to look really hard at this and saying, are we doing the best to create the best providers or to create the number of providers? And
I don't know if I'm numbers.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know if that would make any sense to you, but
your quality versus quantity.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's exactly it. And yes, we need people. There's no doubt there. And then you get into the idea, well, how much are they actually learning about being a provider in the classroom? And that is, Sarah, timely right there. Sometimes as an instructor, it feels like that we're getting them only ready for the registry. Mm-hmm. And in a standard EMT course, we don't get them on the truck enough to actually experience what it's like to be a provider.
It sounds like nowadays it's a freaking checkbox. Like the National Registry is just checkbox like, oh, we got to hit this, got to hit this, got to hit that. And then, oh, here's 3 12-hour shifts. Good luck. And it's like, why can't we? Well, the evaluations are coming from the medics on the truck. Really, they got jobs to do. They're busy. They're tired from it already. Like, why don't we have people in the classroom, say peer to peer, right? Riding that truck, maybe that's too many, or maybe not, or maybe they have to talk about the calls that went on. Something rather than, expecting the people who are worn out, tired, who have been doing this day in and day out. Maybe they're on their 4th day, 5th day, 6th day of overtime, whatever the case may be. And you're expecting them to fill this form out that says, how did I do? Right? And then a lot of them do what? Checkbox, they were okay, 5 out of 5, whatever, move on. Right? And you take it back to your instructor and you go, look, I did my hours. And then they pass you and you go out to the field and it's nothing like what you were training on.
Right. And those pitfalls are what has been plaguing EMS for so long. The pencil whipping, Sarah's actually, you should have her on here. She's cranking all this stuff out so much better than anything I'm going to talk about. But
I plan to. I hope to have her on one day.
Yeah, she's amazing. But yeah, there's this discussion that I have with our preceptors and our FTOs and stuff like that. And they're like, well, how are they learning to be a provider? And I said, well, the hard part about it is that, I can create an environment to learn concepts and skills in a pristine environment. When you're in my skills lab, we can add some stress, but it's not the same as being out there on the ambulance. Until we can mimic that, until we can create an environment where there's, screaming and, real life stuff, we're not going to be as valid as what you can get from your preceptor out there in a real life experience. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you're right. I mean, we have a number of preceptors and a number of FTOs, and if they have students every time they show up on the truck, that's going to diminish the quality too, because they're going to be exhausted. So trying to find that balance is one of those things that sits in my mind all the time. We do have an EMT boot camp class where people will come in and be interviewed, and if we pick them, they get hired to come to EMT school, and they meet 4 days a week.
Absolutely.
And it's 3 days in class and 1 day on the truck. And we've seen some really great results from that, because rather than getting 15 patient contacts in the course of an EMT class, they're getting 160 hours on the truck. And it is a consistent pattern with them. Mm-hmm. And there's more chance for us to, like in the classroom setting, break down their calls and talk about the context of what that is. And all the other instructors that I have with me are all active on the street. Some of them they're actually riding with. So that part is fantastic, because they're getting real life feedback on the stuff that they're doing right then and there. And that is much more something that they can focus on and hang their hat on, rather than necessarily sitting with me in a presentation about the respiratory system. Yes, they need to know all this.
Yeah. And Frosted Chestnut says, 160 hours, I only got 12 and 5 contacts. That's the difference of quality training.
It's...
And not to throw any shade at Frosted Chestnut, by the way. I'm not saying that he's a bad EMT because he only had 5 contacts in 12 hours. I'm just saying that okay, let me ask you this, and you can comment in the comment section, Frosted Chestnut. If you would have had the 160 hours in the EMS boot camp, like Brian was talking about, how much better off would you have been? And while he's typing that out, let's just for like a clip, let's revisit this question.
Okay.
And just let's treat it like a rapid fire question.
Okay.
What does the EMS model do best?
Assimilate.
What does it do the worst?
Encourage.
So it doesn't do enough encouraging, but it does do enough of assimilating.
Yeah, they expect you to fall into a pattern of what we want you to be, but while you're doing it, we're going to love to tear you down. And it kills me that we're still talking about the idea of EMS eating each other, eating our young and spitting them out. We're still talking about this, and it kills me because I just, when I hear some of these seasoned providers say that, oh my God, I can't believe that, you're putting me with this person because they're not ready and da-da-da-da-da. And then I turn around and I say, well, dude, you rode with them 5 times. I said, and I've read your evaluations, and there was not one thing in here that said, oh my God, they're deficient in this. They drive horribly. Their patient care is minimal. Da 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 da. I'm a lot of things, but I'm not a mind reader, and I can't fix what I don't know about. I may not be able to fix it completely, but there has to be this awareness, and it's not on the preceptor, all of it. I want to make that clear. I'm not throwing the preceptors or the FTOs under the bus, because the student bears the responsibility of being proactive about learning. They can't come in and sit down in the corner and expect everything to come to them. I think, everybody that's watching, Sarah probably can chime in, and Frosted Chestnut and everybody, when you show a desire to learn and a desire to get involved and get your hands wet, then you're going to be better received, because the people that are going to eventually be your partner are going to want to know that you're going to be there. Yeah. Yep. And yeah, I'm sorry, you were going to say something.
But no, you're good. I was just going to touch on what you just said. There has to be some sort of change in this, because not only let's say I'm the student in the class. We'll come at it from two angles. I can't be so timid that I don't ask questions, but I also can't know everything to where this is so damn easy to me and then not put any effort in as well. Because I've seen some people come in the classroom and they're just brainiacs. Like, they are just all at it, but they won't interact because it's too easy for them. Right.
Yeah. And the breaking down, and there is a change the culture. Yeah, that's something that we talk about all the time, changing the culture. And I think everybody at some point gets humbled, because you get through the training, you get through the book smart stuff, like Sarah said, and it may seem very simple to you, especially when you've come from maybe a higher education background and you come to this, and maybe it is not as challenging as like AP calculus or chemistry or biochem or something like that, right? And they look at this as something that's pretty simple, right? And conceptually, maybe it is, but taking those concepts and applying to a patient that is bleeding out in front of you, or that's crashing or doing something like that, and adding that level of stress and being able to perform is the real art of it. And when you see them freeze up, or you see them forget what they're doing, that's really the turning point, I think. Are they going to be humbled enough that they realize that they're not as good as they think they are, or are they going to play it off and not take anything away from that interaction? Because, mistakes and stuff like that happen. I encourage my skill sessions to be nothing but mistakes, because you have to be able to make mistakes to learn how to do it right. Well, I have some of my students that were in the beginning were so timid about making mistakes because they had never done any of this. And I said, well, you're not making a mistake because you've never done it. You can't do it wrong if you've never done it. And the more mistakes you make, hopefully you're going to start picking up on the patterns that you've got to change, and you got to have educators and instructors that are encouraging rather than berating you for making those mistakes. And then it has to translate out to the field too. If you get stuck with a partner who dumps on you because you're not perfect, well, why would you want to be then? I mean, it's an odd conundrum because I don't know that there's a lot of places, a lot of professions other than the first responder community where your education is a continuous thing, even after you get out of school, that you're constantly evaluated on. I mean, paramedics have more continuing education hours than doctors. Okay. And it's mind-boggling sometimes. And the pressure that they have to perform at a high level all the time. And I love this field so much, but I think that and I think Sarah had said it earlier, we are coming to a crossroads educationally and culturally where this field is either going to succeed at a whole bunch of new levels or we're going to be relegated. Because there's, when you sit and if you've ever had a conversation with someone who looks at EMS as the forgotten service or the redheaded stepchild and everything like that, because I've even had that conversation where I've been that person. And it was, my question will always be, well, what are you willing to change to create a different environment? Because we're not going to get that from NREMT or NAEMT or the American Paramedic Association or all these organizations. They have their roles and agendas and everything like that. And hopefully no one's watching. It's going to take my card away. But they're a business. They're a business. Yeah. And their job is to create membership and do all this stuff. And yes, they provide a service. But I don't know, man. I mean, some of their draconian ideas, like if you've got, say that, I talked to a medic from Australia, right, who they basically go to college for 4 years to get their paramedic certification. Do you know that if he was going to come to EMS here in the United States, the registry would not recognize any of his stuff? Really? He would have to start from scratch. And not even our Australians, our military medics have to come in.
That's something that's always bothered me. It's like you go in, you're a combat medic, and you learn all these things that basically a paramedic does, and you're going to tell me you're not even good enough to come out as an EMT in advanced anything?
The fact that they don't offer a challenge exam for each provider to prove themselves and then just boom, okay, you're a medic.
Well, it's like I'm a full-time aircraft mechanic, right? If I was to get my A&P in the military, it would not transfer over into the civilian world. Right.
And like Roscoe said, they'll give you a basic. And that's fine in and of itself. But I mean, I think that it's like a Band-Aid. I think that if you really were invested in what these people have done and all they've learned, let them challenge it. Let them challenge the paramedic registry or the advanced registry or whatever they feel comfortable doing.
If it's all about you checking off boxes, that shouldn't be a hard thing.
Right. The structure has to be there that they could create something like that. And yeah, I mean, okay. And it is shameful. We talk a lot about wanting to be like the best and all this other stuff. And, are we? I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot of really amazing providers, but I don't know with the setup that we have in the United States, it's always going to be a point where that ceiling is like right here.
Mm-hmm.
Until you go to like flight or you go to nursing or something like that, the expansion of what we can do is just not there. And sometimes that's why we can't keep people. Yep. And I understand to a degree why, but taking the psychomotor away from the registry, taking the skills check away, I'm still not really comfortable with the whole idea, because it puts the onus on every instructor. Not that I'm afraid of the responsibility. I think that my students will understand what it means to do all of those skills. Their reps that they get from me are enough that they probably hate me. And that's okay, because the more reps they get, they can be angry with me, but they're going to be better at what they do. My concern is... Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. I was mixed feelings on the whole taking away the psychomotors. Okay, so like the way I see it was, it didn't really bother me as much that it got taken away, only because if you look at how we think of the NREMT in general, right? How it's just a checkoff list, then why does it matter? It's just a checkoff.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to institute the psychomotor and to say, okay, well, we'll give you your checkoff NREMT, right? But in order to qualify for your state license, you need to show us that you could actually perform the skills.
Yeah. There's got to be, and it has to be a different format or a different modality, because, and I bet everybody in here remembers when they went through the registry checkoff that there was some instructor that was having a bad day, and you might have said the wrong word, one single word, and you failed the station for a critical fail. That was a bunch of crap.
Were you, in your area, were you allowed to retake that because of that reason?
Yeah, we when I took my EMT class back in back when the dinosaurs were roaming the earth, I failed the airway station because as I was getting up and walking away, the instructor turned and said, "Oh, by the way, in a pediatric BVM, how much air is pushed out?" And I had blanked. I was already focused on the next station because you're so hyped up. And I blurted out something that was wrong. So he failed me. So
Really?
I had to turn around and I had to do it over again an hour later. And I got a different instructor. And that was one of the things that they did right. They didn't make you test out with the same instructor. And I did fine. It was, and it was done. But to add that,
you blinked out on me.
Hello?
I can't hear you.
Hold on. Hang up.
What is going on? Hey, Brian. I can't hear you for some reason. Oh, you got a call going on your end, I think.
everything looks fine on.
Okay. I think you had a phone call.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. I'm
I
sorry
think
about that.
You're good. I think for some reason you got a phone call because I heard a woman's voice, but I was like, I don't recognize who's on the phone. And I was like, I'm not on a phone call. I was like, I don't know where this is coming from.
Sorry.
You're good.
Bill collectors, they're always looking for me. Sorry about that.
I was trying to signal just like, hey, I can't hear you. And then they're like, just hang up. And I was like, what do you mean? I don't know. I'm on a phone call.
Because it was funny because nothing came up on this end. All right, cool. All right. So, well, I told you it'd be interesting. Okay. All right. So
everybody in the chat, we good? Can you hear him?
Sarah, can you hear me?
Now.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I honestly don't remember where you left off at.
Yeah, that was we were talking about the psychomotor and the good and the bad part about it. And my concern will always be that one instructor at some place who decides that they want to have a class and they will pencil whip everybody through it just to get the numbers through. And then you're dealing with a class of 10 or 15 people that have no real ability. And it's
I wish the classes were smaller. I wish it was like maybe 8 to 10 instead of like 20 people, because then you could really focus on intent.
Yeah, the current hybrid class I have is 9 students, and it is perfect, because if I get a couple other instructors in there with me and we're doing the skills, then everybody gets a certain amount of attention, and we're not missing a lot. The boot camp classes that we have are traditionally like 4 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you're sort of in with them from February to May, 3 days a week in class, and you build a relationship. I mean, and I think that we don't talk about this near enough. To be an effective communicator or an effective instructor or an effective student, you have to embrace the classroom relationship. You have to be willing to create this thing where the students trust you to bring them the knowledge, and you have to trust them that they're going to do it. If they don't do what they're supposed to do, well, then the end result is they're not going to pass. Okay. And, there's things that you can do to help them without crossing the line and making it illegal or anything like that. But, there is a relationship involved in there, and most of the students that I have had that have stayed in this field, we have developed friendships after class was done. There has to be that divide, of course, but there's a relationship there. And I think that the instructors that don't do well don't want to invest themselves enough. And I understand that, though, because it creates burnout. When I have students who don't pass, I spend days trying to figure out what I did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's not the smartest thing to do in the world. It's the path of self-destruction, but I can't help it. I sit there and think I could have done better. I could have reached them a little bit more. I don't know. People have said that that's one of the biggest problems that I have, in the sense that I'm too involved in their success.
Too much?
Yeah, I guess that's it. I don't know that it's a bad thing, but it's taxing.
Can you care too much?
I think that if the caring goes to the point of doing things that you shouldn't do, like, pencil whipping something just to get that person through because you think, okay, they're going to do better. And I'm cognizant of that, because I sit there and think, okay, in the classroom setting, you've got the idea that you could, okay, maybe look the other way because they'll get this sooner or later. When you get out there on the street, it is unforgiving. Either you know it or you don't, and you do it or you don't, and the patient's going to suffer because of it.
Sometimes failing a student's the best decision and the best for them. They may not understand in the moment, but when they realize later that they didn't know what they thought they knew.
Right, exactly. And like when they get out there and they have that first call that's really, really bad, and they sit there and think, oh, okay, I don't want to do this. It's failure on the street is different from failure on the classroom. Failure on the street means somebody's probably going to die. And and you have to figure out a way to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole other ball of wax there, figuring and getting them to understand how to deal with those issues.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite exercises is the death notification.
Ooh.
Yeah, we have
That's a biggie.
People, yeah, we have people in our billing office that have no experience in EMS, and at some point during my classroom, I will bring one of them up, and I will have the student sit there in front of her and say, "Okay, you need to tell this person that their father just died," and it is often excruciating, and it is and it's because they're trying to be kind to them, but they don't realize that being kind to them is denying them what they need to know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, your mother's not here anymore. That is, they're gone. So my people are prepped for this, and they say, well, where did they go? What do you mean they're not here? Well, what does that mean? And they don't give them an inch. They have to come to the point of saying, I'm sorry, your mother has died.
Mm.
And they're like really angry with me. Like, why did you make me do that? Because I said, you have to be able to say that. You have to be able to give that person the opportunity to understand and then start the grieving process. Because you're denying them that. It is the idea that, you've done everything that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no more to do. But, you pronounced, and you need to tell the family that so they can start the process of grieving. And sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. I'm not saying that, like, if we do this once in class, they've got it like this and there's never going to be a problem. But it's at least the idea of getting a sample of that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And you all can steal that. Everybody that's an instructor here, take it and run with it, because I stole it. So it's...
So we'll jump into this quick 10-second sponsor break, and then we'll jump into the next question. Quick shout out to End of Shift Apparel. Go check out the link in the bio. Go check out makes apparel for veterans and first responders. It's quality gear made by people who actually understand first responders and the veteran community. Tim Snowden, the founder, builds durable apparel, supports veterans, and runs his business the right way. If you care about people who support what you wear, check out End of Shift Apparel through the link in the bio. And let's get back to the episode. Question 4 says, you're involved in tactical medicine, S&R, search and rescue, and bike teams. How do those roles change the way you think about scene safety, patient care, and decision-making under pressure?
Oh, okay. Well, scene safety is an absolute myth. It is a joke that we talk about.
Out the gate. That was great.
Scene safety is something that we have to say at the beginning of the registry. It is a myth. We exist in chaos. Okay. That is our job. We exist in chaos, and we have to carve out a measure of control every time we go into it. And that's on the street. It's even on the bike team and doing the events and everything like that. The tactical stuff has really brought into me the concept of less being very much more. We harp on the idea of situational awareness, and Sarah, right in my brain, we've talked situational awareness for a very long time in EMS, but very few instructors spend the time to actually break down what situational awareness is and give people exercise in the situational awareness. My students are so gun shy coming into my class because I put them through so many situational awareness exercise. I'm bordering on paranoia with them, but it's the idea of creating people that are aware of what they're walking into. And the tactical end of it, knowing that the vast majority of what we're going to do is what we learned in EMT school, and even like fine tuning that, stopping the bleed, doing the tourniquet, placing the seal, packing the wound, getting them off the scene. There is a lot in trauma that we can expand on, but we never want to forget that the actual fundamental stuff is what saves people's lives. And the search and rescue stuff, it is a different mindset. It is a idea where you are, this is probably as close to austere sort of like wilderness medicine that I'm ever going to get. But when you find somebody out in a park and you have to, do a group carry out, maybe like a mile and a half or something like that, or treat somebody there and wait for assistance. It really brings home the fact that you got to have your shit together. And, this can't be faked. Not that you fake it anyway, but,
no,
they're
some of us.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think it's just those other things just remind me that EMS is not just sitting in the back of the truck. Not that there's anything wrong with any of that.
So, on top of that, you've become deeply involved in human trafficking awareness. What originally pulled you into that kind of work, and why should EMS providers specifically care about the issue?
Well, I think it's every human should care about the issue. EMS providers, because no one really understands how valuable we can be. When I first had started learning about this, it was through some organizations that had taken some national notoriety. But I was contacted by a group out of Texas called Gentlemen Incorporated, and they are a group of current and former law enforcement officers who do online sting operations, online interventions against trafficking. And they decided to create a cadre of instructors to go out and teach the first responder community on human trafficking awareness. And unfortunately, out of my group, I'm the only one left that's still. But I have, to date, I've spoken in 7 states and a bunch of online stuff. I've worked with EMS World. I've done the fire convention in Indianapolis. I've done a lot of state conventions speaking about this, and just bringing as much awareness as I can. And I'll go anywhere and talk. I've done churches, I've done firehouses, conventions. Anybody that wants to have me around, I'll do it. How the procedures have gone has changed in the sense that each presentation is it's very draining, because we talk about the realities of what this is, because there's so many myths and misconceptions that get put out there, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not intentionally. And to break through some of that stuff. And then what I've noticed is that the last 7 or 8 times that I have spoken, I've had people waiting for me afterwards who had somebody that went through that, or had direct knowledge of it, or were so upset that they think they might have missed something. And I remember I was in Kentucky one time at the state conference, and I had this woman come up, and she said that she just said, can I have a hug, please? And I'm like, yeah, I'm a hugger. I bring it in, do whatever. And she started sobbing. And I guess her cousin had been a victim of this. And she said, everything that you talked about was right in front of us, and we never saw it. And these are providers. These are the people who've gone through the same training we have. These are the people that go out and make differences in people's lives every day. But the disconnect of okay, good, Sarah. When confronted with something like this, and I'll tell you the specific call that really spurred this on, and I wasn't even on it. A crew that used to work for me or for my department responded to one of the low rent motels for a 14-year-old girl who was complaining of abdominal pain, and they found her in the hotel room alone and complaining of some abdominal pain. And she was very evasive about what was going on. And when the crew tried to talk to her about it, she decided that she didn't want anything more to do with them, and she wasn't going to go. And she slammed the door and went back into the hotel room, and the crew left. And I was hearing this go over in real time, and I heard the supervisor get on the air and told them to get their collective behinds back to that call, because A, it was a minor, and B, there was nobody there. There was, all the reasons that we should never leave a patient there. And when they got back, the patient's brother was there and signed the refusal and everything like that. But it brought into focus, even talking with them afterwards, that this is a classic sign that this poor girl could have been trafficked. And in that time, and we've had a couple cases in Lancaster County where there's been actual people that have been arrested secondarily, at least to what our crews have been reported in, I think 2 years ago, they sent somebody away for life without parole because of it. And we can make a difference. We can make this happen. And if we talk about it, and everybody asks me, well, what's the most important skill to have when you're doing this? And oddly enough, it's compassion. And
Absolutely.
It's the one skill that I can't teach. I can't teach you to be compassionate. When all these people that are watching right now, and you and everything, when we do this stuff, if we're not compassionate, if we don't bring something of our heart into this and our genuine caring about the people in front of us, then we're not good at what we do. I'm sorry. You could be a genius. You could be able to start IVs hanging from the ceiling, okay, blindfolded. But if you're not compassionate, then you're not going to be anywhere near as good as you could be. I say that without hypocrisy, knowing that I have gone through some of the worst burnout, and there was a lot of times where I was not the person that I was supposed to be. And I have come back from that disaster, thankfully. But it has just magnified the idea that, think about this. Think about the idea if there's a 14 or 15-year-old child that has been trafficked, that has been treated horribly, physically, verbally, assaulted, raped, everything like that. And the only group of people that she's been around for X amount of time are the traffickers. And the only people that she can look at as like a family unit, because they're the only people taking care of her. And she ends up needing an ambulance. And in that 30 to 40 minutes that you're there with her, if you are a compassionate and kind human being, something maybe she's not had in ever, maybe there's a chance that she's going to start talking to you or talking to somebody in the ER and maybe getting her away from what's going on. I'd be willing to take that chance all day, man. Even if she doesn't talk to me, she may talk to somebody in the emergency room. She may talk to a law enforcement officer. She may talk to anybody. So the purpose of what I do is to get maybe some blinders off and get people more aware, and just to expand on what they already do. I'm not techniques that are like mystical techniques from like the other plateaus or anything. I'm just saying, there are things that we can look for. So
compassion is definitely going to be one of them. Has to be one of them.
Yep.
As community outreach chair for South Carolina Human Trafficking Task Force, what are some indicators first responders miss, and what's one thing every provider should know walking into a call? Okay,
so some of the myths that people automatically assume, that they've been kidnapped. It's not like they're being grabbed and pulled into a white van and whisked away by people with foreign accents. Approximately 75% of the people that are trafficked or brought into trafficking are brought in by people that they know. There's a absurdly high amount of family members that traffic their own, sometimes to pay off drug debts, sometimes to get more drugs. It's horrific. So family, yes, family members are not the ally here a lot of times. And they don't have to be kept prisoner. Sometimes they live at home and are being sort of blackmailed to do this without having to be constrained. You may not get anything from them. Like there's all these billboards, like one of the slides that we use are this thing where you see these girls' hands and there's these handcuffs and it says "help me" on it. And that's just Hollywood nonsense. That's all that is. You're not going to see that, okay? Because, if we did that, then we'd be able to stop this altogether. The obvious signs, but you have to dig a little bit because that person who's not talking to you, Here's one of the classic things. When we go into a scene and we see 45 different pill bottles from one of our patients, right? From one of our elderly patients, we're fine with that because we know that, yes, there could be all these medications. But if you look at them, right, are they all the same name? Okay. Are they all the same names? Okay. We look for the dosages, right? We look for, there's this pain reliever and there's supposed to be 90 in here that was filled last week and they're supposed to take one a day. Well, it's 1 week later and there's 3 pills left. Okay. Boom. All right. That's a red flag. But why does a 14-year-old need a king-size bottle of Cipro? Why does this kid in their backpack have 7 different bottles of medications with 7 different names on it? Okay. Is there any ID whatsoever? Does it correlate with any of those pill bottles? Okay. Some of the things that we look at all the time and maybe we just miss because we're trying to get that information down and we're trying to get the patient to the hospital because I want to get to the hospital because I got to use the bathroom and I haven't eaten in 6 hours and I'm just like all this. But it's there sometimes. And like what Sarah had talked about, the physical exams, right? We talk about noticing different shades of bruises all over the people's body, and we understand that it's abuse, right? Yeah, okay. Sometimes it can be straight abuse, and that's horrific enough of itself. But underlying that, who's doing the abusing? Is it a family member? Is it a uncle that doesn't look anything like them and speaks in an oddly different, tongue? Like cultural wise, like if you come to Lancaster County, right, I stick out like a sore thumb, all right, because of this accent that I have, right? But say that you walk into a group of like 15 or 20 guys and there's 2 12-year-old girls in there, something's wrong, okay? The way that they're made up. Okay. Is there makeup and stuff age appropriate? I have a Boston accent. Outstanding, John. Outstanding, man. Got a hobbit in the yard. So have a Dunkin' on.
Have you popped into John's lives before?
No. We're gonna have to talk. That's very cool.
He does a lot of paramedic. Like he has this board behind him. He writes and does all kinds of teaching. He does a lot of teaching on TikTok
I think I've
Live.
seen his page a couple times, but I'm going to definitely check it out more. So,
yeah.
And so a lot of this is like rehashing stuff that they have learned, but in a different light. I think that's probably the best way. Man. Y'all, sir, ma'am. Yeah. Have you gotten "bless your heart" yet? Because I've been waiting for someone to look at me and say "bless your heart," and knowing what that means.
I know what that means. And when someone said that, they were like, "Yeah, they told me to bless my heart," and I was like, "Yeah, that wasn't nice." They're like, "What do you mean?" It's not nice.
And I'm so used to the Brooklyn sort of people just saying, you can go fuck yourself and being right there and right up front. that is much more brutal, and it cuts deeper because they're like smiling at you and just like, oh, okay, all right, yeah.
Well, one of my favorite ones is when you get people that use like the bless your heart, and they think they're being legitimately nice, and it's because someone taught them what that, or that's just being nice when you say this, and so they're going around. And you're like, wait, what? Did you just call me stupid? They're like, no, like I meant like bless you, and they're like, where'd you hear that from?
Yeah. I'm waiting to go back to visit New York and use that a couple times and watch people's reactions. It should be amusing. So
have the day you deserve.
Yeah. So I will continue to do those presentations and spread awareness probably for the rest of my existence, because it's that important. If I can get one person slightly more aware of all this stuff, then I'll have done what I need to do. And being part of the task force, the state task force, is mind-bogglingly amazing, because when I contacted them, and I'm going to say at first they were receptive enough, but when I first contacted them, they said to me, we never thought of involving EMS in this.
Go Patriots.
Go Patriots. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm a Raiders fan. I have nothing to cheer about. Go Patriots. Okay. I don't even have a football team anymore. They're a bunch of guys that look like from a shelter. But anyway, being able to be a part of this state group and the support and watching what they do to try and intervene, it's very interesting.
So on top of all of that, let's add on one more layer here. You're also involved in organizations that directly support injured and ill EMS providers. Why is taking care of our own still such a struggle in this profession, and how do we fix it?
Okay. So I am on the board of the Primum Non Nocere Foundation. The website is pnnf.net. And what we did, we started this in New York, and actually we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary. And what we do, because you probably know somebody who has been hurt on the job or gotten sick and has been out for a period of time, and you know what it's like to navigate the red tape of trying to get reimbursement and funds. So what we do is we fill the gaps. We will take funds that we raise and we will pay utility bills. We will fill the fridge with food. We had a couple families whose houses burned down, that we helped them with clothing and computers and stuff like that. And we keep them above water until the other stuff comes in. We don't hand money directly. We take care of the stuff and then give that to them, because we had a couple experiences that were a bit less than successful that way. Everything that we raise goes back out. None of us take anything as far as compensation to do this. As the yearly report that we had just came out so far, that we have reached 15 states and given about $77,000 out.
Damn.
Yeah, it's been really great, and we've actually even found out that there's other organizations that do stuff similar to this. We were really proud to be solely EMS, simply because we saw a gap there, where there's a lot of organizations that step up for law enforcement and fire, as there should be, but we just didn't see as many for EMS as the others. So we started doing that. And quite frankly, we have simply the best fundraisers that can exist. We had one here in Waxhaw where, all right, Sarah, you got to aim higher than deer. Okay. But we'll talk. We just did a fundraiser in a distillery where we had a tasting, where the owners of the distillery opened up a specific barrel for us. So the people who bought tickets could get a sampling of this rye that had been aging for 10 years. And
that's cool.
Yeah, and it worked out really well. And what we raised, the distillery doubled it. So we walked out of, I think we raised a little over $2,000 that night, and that was after 4 hours. And we do in February here in Waxhaw, we've got a paint and sip coming up where one of the Mexican restaurants that we spend far too much time in is opening up their dining room for us. And we have a young lady who comes in and does a painting class, and there's food and wine and everything like that, and you buy tickets for it, and everything that comes in goes back out. So that's what we do. And how do we fix this? Well, I don't know. I think that what we do helps, but I think that
I think what you're doing is fixing the problem.
Well, it helps. It doesn't fix the glaring errors that we have in taking care of our own. I remember reading that, and this was a few years back, that the CDC had put out some statistics that out of every 7 people that graduate from EMT school, 4 will be out, hurt, significantly missing time in the first 3 years. And 80% of that is not from assault or anything like that. It's from simple lifting and moving techniques or lack of technique. And so what the foundation is doing is handling the back end of it after what happens. But one of the things that we really need to talk about, and we don't talk about this enough in EMS, is the fact that a lot of our people are not fit enough to do this job from a physical end of it. And I want to make sure that what I clarify here is saying that you don't have to be some Adonis. Look at me. I'm basically a hobbit here. There's nothing.
I'm basically a hobbit.
But
that was good.
And the reason that I have waited a year to go back is because I have to be able to build up my strength so that I can help move patients and lift and do what I need to do. That part of what the failing I see in EMS is that we don't address the physical end of this job near enough. I have worked with partners who walking up a flight of stairs was a challenge. I have seen providers who take entirely too much time trying to get into the back of the ambulance. I'm not trying to make fun. I'm not trying to be cruel.
We're not shaming, but there is a point where it's too much.
Shame, because there are people that are very large that are in amazing shape and can do amazing things. And it's simply being functionally fit to do this job, meaning that you can get in and out of the ambulance, you can carry and move a patient, you can do the things that you need to do to be what you need to be for your patient, for your partner, and for yourself. Okay.
So there's a saying that I follow a group called Fit to Fight Fire USA, and the guy has a standalone branding that I just fall behind. It says, "Be the rescuer that you'd want rescuing you."
Yes. Exactly. And to take that a little bit further, I judge providers on whether I'd want them taking care of my family. That's the be all of how I look at anybody in the first responder field. Would I want you there for my family in crunch time? And it has very little to do with skill sometimes, as more as like appearance, physical ability, attitude, that sort of stuff. And yeah, sometimes when it comes down to it, I'll deal with the fact that you're a giant ass if you're doing the right thing. And even to take that a little bit further, the physical part, but also appearance. I never thought, you sit there and you walk around with some of the people and they come into work and their boots are untied and their pants are draped over it and their shirts are untucked, and you could tell what they had for breakfast the previous day, and their hair looks like
teeth aren't brushed.
Right. And you know, there is a odor that smacks you from across the room. And I'm sitting there going, and I remember asking one, I mean, would you want your mom to deal with somebody that looked like you? And I remember them saying, well, they're just going to have to accept that because this is what I am. And I'm like, see, you know, this is the part where it shoots themselves in the foot. Okay. There's not a lot of firehouses I know that would tolerate that. There's not a lot of sheriff's departments I know that would tolerate that. There would be interventions, sometimes from the top down, sometimes from peer to peer. Yeah. And I think that's really where change can happen on that. You know,
I know personally, the guys around me, and they have looked at me and said, dude, you're letting yourself go. And at one point, when I first started fire, I was 233 pounds, but was dropping weight from where I was at 300 pounds. And like you said, I climbed one set of stairs and I was breathing so heavy I couldn't stand it. So I just had to lose weight, went from 300, eventually got down to 233. The Air Force was another story. We can talk about that at a different time. Firefighting became a thing, did that, and I was fit for a while until I got comfortable, and then I started letting myself go. And currently, right now, I'm at 271 pounds. So that tells you how far I backtracked. And just last year, I was at 242. So,
okay.
Yeah, I let myself go, and there's just this past year, and people was like, well, man, it's okay. You know, you've got a lot going on. Sure. Yeah, I agree with you. I got a lot going on, but I personally could have done better, and I did not.
Right. So I have had a very long journey. One point I lost 113 pounds, went from 270 down to about 160. Seeing me at 270 was an interesting thing. It looked like a basketball. But it is, you know, and then having this surgery and knowing that part of it was a genetic thing and part of it was just not doing what I needed to do. And
I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this out loud, and people are going to hate me for saying it, but you can only blame genetics for so much.
Right. So, okay, I was just about to get on my little soapbox about that one. So it is, and I will say this to everybody who's watching it. My friends, I never had chest pain. I never had any symptoms of a heart attack and everything like that. But I found out that, like, I was probably 6 months away from not being here. And why I believe exactly what you just said is that I walked out of that, I rolled out of that hospital with the idea that everything was going to change. And since February, when I got out of the hospital, everything has changed. My diet, my exercise patterns, everything. I lost 30 pounds and I've kept the vast majority of it off. I'm close to being at the weight I wanted. I've started running road races. I'm getting ready to do a 20-mile hike in May. And it is, I'm doing it for a completely selfish reason. I have a 10-year-old and I want to see every part of her life that I'm allowed to see.
Amen to that.
Plus, yeah. And plus, I want to be around to do what I love doing. And
I got a 12-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 6-year-old, so I feel you.
Man, yeah. And it changes when you have kids, man. I mean, you know, I always looked at parents and I was like, man, I don't know how y'all do it. And now I can't think of any other way to live. That child is amazing in my life. And she just poked her head in here a minute ago. So but
I'm on day 3 of 75 hard, which I've done this. If you don't know what it is,
okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've done it probably 6 other times and failed every time, but I've gotten at least a month in before something happened. This last time I made it 44 days, And so this is 32 ounces. So 4 of these would be a gallon. And you just saw me finish up half a gallon with this one. But I went to bed one night, and the only 2 things I had left on the list were read my book and drink my water. Well, I said, I'm getting really tired. I'll drink my water in a minute. I had about maybe that much left. Was reading my book, had about 10 ounces left, and I just knocked smooth out. I woke up the next morning, and I was like, I'm going to go refill my water bottle. I grabbed it, and I went, uh-oh. And she's like, what? And I was like, I just felt 75 hard. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, there's still water in my jug. I did not complete my water intake yesterday. And she's like, it's only 10 ounces. And I went, yeah, that's what everybody else would say too.
Well, and I get that. I do, especially because I've gone through that a couple times. I have an issue with the idea of failed. I mean, and that
which is why I'm still doing it. Like, I didn't fail and then stop doing it. I failed with the intent of I have to restart from day one.
Right. But it's you're still doing. I mean, if the only failure I think is when you walk away from what you're trying to do to get better. There's going to be.
I think that's a big part of it, is just understanding that, like, what is true failure.
Right. And and we can apply that across the board here in what we do. If you fail to improve yourself as a provider, educationally, physically, mentally, in all aspects of what we do, then that could be considered a failure. But if you are trying to get better and maybe you're not succeeding at the moment, maybe you need to adjust something, maybe you need to look at it from a different end. You keep clawing away at this, sooner or later that breakthrough is going to happen. When I was taking jiu-jitsu and on a regular basis, and I was training a lot, my teacher used to talk about the phrase kaizen, and it's a Japanese term, and it means consistent small improvements, and the idea of getting like 1% better every day. And that's always stayed with me. And the idea that at the end of the day, I can look at myself and say, okay, this one thing I did do well. Okay, I can take this and build on it the next day. And if I had one of those days.
So I'll tell you what I learned out of the whole 75 hard thing, and that'll maybe, I think honestly every EMS personnel needs to try 75 hard, because it's not a weight loss challenge. It's not even a challenge in itself. It's a mental toughness recalibration. Are you going to do the hard stuff when the hard stuff is necessary? Or are you going to bitch out and say, nope, I'm not going to do that because I don't have time. Something else is going on. You're going to make excuses for the rest of your life. So, yes, I went 44 days and I, quote unquote, failed, right? But what I ignited in myself in those 44 days was I didn't walk away going, it's only 10 ounces. I walked away going, I did not finish. It was not good enough.
Yeah.
Meaning, when I take my mental toughness earned, even though I didn't do all 75 days, I still earned some of it, right? Recalibration. I go into my job, and when someone says, hey, that's enough, let's go. And then, in the back of my head, I'm like, is that really enough? I look at things all the time, like a call will come out, and people will bitch and moan that it's a frequent flyer call. And I was like, has anybody tried talking to the patient, like their family or anybody around, like, hey, your loved one's calling EMS 3-4 times a day. Is there anybody that can help him, be around him, something? Like, I'm not saying that we're incapable or not willing to help out these people, but like, that's our job, is, like you said, to have a sense of brain to understand the call and what's going on around you. And you're understanding that this person is incapable of living on their own.
Right.
So as a advocate for EMS, and as a person, what we should be learning is, hey, let's take it a step further. We don't have to call the patient's family, but what's wrong with doing so?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's little bits that are not written in protocols that you can do every day that makes a huge difference. But if you've ever,
sorry to end that, and
No.
just to close that off, why that mental toughness matters in like a situation like that is if I didn't have that mental toughness to think through my job in every situation I need to, right? I would walk away just like the other EMS personnel going, okay, yeah, that's enough. Here, they sign my refusal, walk out the door and leave.
Yep.
I would not have any inkling to furtherance the patient.
Right. And what was your interaction? What was the value of that interaction?
Exactly.
Just picking off a box, man. That's all. So.
Alrighty. Well, let's finish up these rapid fire questions. How about that?
All right.
Okay. So this is worded the way it is. It says coffee or energy drinks, but I'm gonna switch it up on you.
Okay.
Caffeine or nicotine?
Caffeine.
And with caffeine, coffee or energy drinks?
Coffee. Just started
Black
out
or-
being poor.
Black coffee or creamer?
Black.
Light or dark roast?
Light. More caffeine.
That's actually a myth. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah.
All the people at Starbucks have been lying to me? Damn it.
So
Okay.
it's not so much that it's a complete myth, because it's true and it's not true at the same time. And why I say that is the caffeine content really has nothing to do with the bean being a dark roast or a light roast. But the difference is the volume of what you're getting. So if the darker roast, you have to have more in volume to equal the same amount of caffeine as you would a light roast.
Okay. Very well played. Thank you.
But there is no like caffeine loss from the bean, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right.
Cool. I learned that with this the other day. I thought that was cool.
Awesome. That's great.
One skill every new medic needs to know, or needs, but doesn't realize it yet.
Situational awareness.
Most misunderstood part of EMS by the public.
Our abilities.
One thing you wish administrators understood about field providers.
You can only stretch them so far.
And after all these years, what still makes it worth it?
Getting up in front of a class every day. Yeah,
Awesome.
Every day. Yeah.
Did you knock those out? That's great. So we will, I'll do my little outro here. I wrote a little note for you, and then just to thanking you for coming on. So, Brian, I truly appreciate you taking your time to sit down and have this conversation, your experience, your advocacy, and the work you're doing for both the community and our own people matter more than you probably realize it does. To everyone listening, if this episode made you think, challenged you, or taught you something new, do me a favor and share it with someone who needs to hear it. You can watch all full episodes on the YT app. Just search Tales from the Tailboard Podcast, or click the link in my bio for a link tree with access to all my social medias and the merch shop by End of Shift Apparel. Keep watching for more content, and be sure to hit all the buttons, like, comment to let me know you've seen the video, and share and repost to help spread the word of all EMS and what it has to offer. Brian, thank you for coming on. Thanks for being my guest.
Thank you for having me, man. I had a really great time. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Dispatch, medic 1, show medic 1 en route.